My family built a guest house beside a cliff. It extends 5 underground levels into the mountain. This week, I dreamed that an extreme heat wave was coming, so I decided to convert the underground space into a restaurant, kitchen, private cinema, swimming pool, cold storage, and a fully secured survival zone. Before Kixi Festival, I took annual leave and went to my family's seaside guest house with my boyfriend Jiang Xuan. But on the drive there, I had a strange dream. I dreamed that right after Kixi Festival, an extreme heat wave suddenly struck. The temperature soared past 50 degrees Celsius. Jiang Xuan and I hid underground in the guest house, but the air conditioning eventually failed, and our food ran out. In the end, we leaned against the wall and completely lost consciousness. There's a service area ahead. Want to stop for a while? Jiang Xuan's voice pulled me back to reality. I snapped my eyes open, my heart pounding wildly. The next second, a kitten darted out from the roadside. Jiang Xuan slammed on the brakes. Startled, the kitten turned and disappeared into the bushes. My whole body went rigid. The exact same thing had happened in my dream. Xuan, I just dreamed about that kitten. I told Jiang Xuan everything I'd seen in the dream. At first, he told me not to overthink it, but when I pointed at the bushes and said that in my dream, the kitten ran away. And later, we didn't survive either. He fell silent. I carefully walked over. If I could change the kitten's fate, then maybe I could change ours too. I crouched beside a rock and slowly lured the kitten out with a sausage. Jiang Xuan brought over a blanket, and together we placed it into a cardboard box. Let's give the kitten a name. What should we call it? We found it on Kixi Festival. Then let's call him Kiki. When Jiang Xuan and I arrived at the guest house with Kiki, the manager, Uncle Chen, was already waiting at the entrance. Uncle Chen, cancel every Kixi booking. Xiaoyan, the underground party hall is already set up. Cancelling now will cost us quite a lot. I told Uncle Chen that an extreme heatwave might be coming. At first he hesitated, but when he checked and saw that the actual coastal temperature that day had exceeded 41 degrees Celsius, 7 degrees higher than forecast, his expression immediately turned serious. You think it's going to get even hotter? I don't think. This is just a normal temperature rise. We need to prepare in advance. That day, we stopped accepting all new bookings. Existing guests received full refunds plus travel compensation. That same night, we began planning the underground conversion. The party area that had originally been scheduled to open for Kixi was also taken off promotion. The cinema, self-service barbecue area, pool, cold storage, and warehouse were all reorganized. In the office, I wrote water and power, food and insulation, medical care and security on the whiteboard. Whether the dream came true or not, if even half of it was real, we couldn't prepare as if this were just a vacation. The 5 underground levels were structurally solid, but waterproofing, drainage, ventilation and backup power all had to be rechecked. I picked up the marker and wrote another line beside them. 14-day extreme heat fortress conversion plan. Starting now. First, we checked the water supply. The guest house used commercial municipal water. If extreme heat struck, the supply system could become unstable. There were 2 deep wells in the courtyard, but the water quality had to be tested. Uncle Chen pumped fresh well water and sent it for testing. The results came back quickly. The water looked clear, but it was actually very hard and contained sediment and trace impurities. It couldn't be drunk directly. Jiang Xuan quickly came up with a solution. If we can't drink it, we can use it for showers, laundry, and flushing toilets. I nodded. We'll store drinking water separately. The well water will be for daily household use. We first rented a warehouse 2 kilometers away, so we could split up and store the bulk supplies. Then we contacted 3 legitimate distributors to purchase bottled water, large water jugs, and food-grade storage tanks. We didn't move everything back to the guest house at once. Instead, we had trucks make staggered deliveries through the rear entrance. 500 cases of bottled water would cover daily drinking and emergency trips outside. 300 large water jugs went to the kitchen and underground living areas. In addition, we ordered 1 large food-grade storage tank for long-term reserves. We checked the production date on every case. Water with shorter shelf life went near the front, and the newest stock went deeper inside. We fitted the large jugs with manual pumps, so we could still draw water even during a total blackout. The temperature-controlled pool on the third basement level wasn't wasted either. We drained it completely, cleaned and disinfected it, then refilled it with treated utility water. The heating system was shut off entirely, leaving only filtration and circulation. The pool water wouldn't be used for drinking. It would mainly be used for laundry, cleaning and flushing toilets. We also placed large covered water barrels on every level. If the pumps failed, we could at least draw water manually in an emergency. Once drinking water was handled, the most critical problem was electricity. The guest house already had 2 generators, but after Jiang Xuan brought in professionals to calculate the power load, the results weren't encouraging. If all 5 underground levels ran at once, the central air conditioning, cold storage, water pumps, and ventilation would drain power rapidly. We needed a tiered power system. Jiang Xuan pointed at the wiring diagram. The living areas AC gets second priority. The cinema, KTV, and party equipment will all be shut down. I looked at the projector system that had just been installed on basement level 2. I hated to give it up, but only a little. If the situation from my dream really happened, we could live without movies. We couldn't live without power. Through a licensed company, we ordered 2 high-output silent generators, installed automatic transfer switches, and had the construction crew divide the electrical circuits. The first circuit powered cold storage, domestic water and ventilation. The second circuit powered the air conditioning and lighting on basement levels 2 and 5. The third circuit powered the medical room and surveillance system. As for the cinema, floor heating, party sound system, and high-powered kitchen appliances, they would only be used briefly when power was abundant. The guest house already had solar panels on the roof, and we added a large array over the parking canopy. The panels couldn't run the central AC, but they could charge the battery bank and keep the lights, phones, cameras, and low-power fans running. Every circuit in the equipment room was relabeled. Which switch controlled each level, how to start the generators, and how to switch between solar and backup power were all printed out and posted on the wall. Jiang Xuan and I practiced the procedures every day. At first, we couldn't even remember the correct backup power sequence. Later, Uncle Chun broke every step down into a checklist. We practiced from that checklist again and again, until we could do it with our eyes closed. To prepare for equipment failures, we also bought wrenches, socket sets, pliers, a multimeter, insulated gloves, spare plugs, and assorted replacement parts. Everyday tools stayed in the equipment room, while backup tools were locked in cabinets. Each type of spare part was sorted by equipment, with labels showing its name and purpose. Once water and power were stable, we moved on to insulation. I used to love the guest house's floor-to-ceiling windows. You could see the sea from inside the rooms, but now every pane of glass looked like a giant heat collector. Once the construction crew arrived, all exposed windows were covered with heat-insulating film. Removable sunshades were installed outside. The roof was repainted with a light-colored reflective coating. All the dark mats on the terrace were removed. Temporary insulation panels were also installed on the 2 exterior walls receiving the strongest sunlight. The freight passage leading underground originally had no door. It had been used to move alcohol and food supplies. We installed a heavy double-layer insulated door, plus access control and surveillance at the entrance. The guest house's original glass front door was replaced with a reinforced security door. I completely redesigned the guest house layout. The first and second floors contained guest rooms and could still be used for accommodation. Basement level 1 became the kitchen and dining area. The original commercial kitchen's gas stoves, induction cookers, steamers, ovens, and sterilizing cabinets were all kept. The dining room would no longer be open to the public. Extra tables and chairs were moved into the corners, and the remaining space was used to unpack and sort supplies. Basement level 2 became our main living area. It had originally been a private cinema, and had no windows. The walls also had soundproofing layers. One converted the 2 small screening rooms into bedrooms. Beds, wardrobes, small tables, and fans were moved inside. We kept the large sofas. If we couldn't sleep at night, we could still lie there and watch movies. Basement level 3 had originally been a heated swimming pool. We converted it into a bathing, laundry, and cooling area. Basement level 4 held the cold storage, freezers and equipment room. Meat, seafood, frozen food and medicines requiring refrigeration were all stored there. As for basement level 5, it was the most important area, the core warehouse, and our final safe zone. It sat deepest inside the mountain, where the temperature was most stable. Even if every system on the upper levels failed, we could retreat there with our supplies. And of course there was Kiki. He had his own little room too. His bed was placed on basement level 2. Next to it were cat food, a water dispenser, litter box and small cat tree. I even had a small pet door installed, so he could move freely around the living area. If the extreme heat from my dream really came, Kiki had to survive comfortably too. His food supply also had to last 2 years. Jiang Chuan crouched down and rubbed Kiki's head. Don't worry, it's already on the list. He handed me the shopping sheet. Everything Kiki needed had been listed separately. So, we planned to go shopping first thing the next morning. But before we could even leave, 2 unexpected guests arrived at the entrance. They were a young couple, pulling 2 suitcases behind them. They had originally booked a room for the night before Kixi. After we decided to close, I had already cancelled every reservation on the platform. Their room fee had been refunded in full, and we called each guest individually. These 2 were the only ones who never answered. They hadn't replied to our messages either. When the man learned that the guest house was closed, his face darkened immediately. We drove for more than 6 hours. And now you're telling us you won't take us? I pulled up the booking records and showed them. The reservation had been cancelled long ago, and the refund had already been processed. Our staff had called 5 times, but no one had answered. Only then did the couple take out their phones and check. It turned out they'd been driving all day and had missed the messages and calls. Hotels outside are all hard to book now. Could you let us stay for 1 night? We'll leave tomorrow once we find somewhere else. After thinking for a moment, I agreed. But I made the situation clear first. Fine, but tonight we can only provide a guest room, hot water and breakfast. The underground entertainment area is under maintenance and off limits. I charged them our normal rate and gave them a room on the outer side of the first floor with a sea view. It was the room farthest from the underground levels. The air conditioning, hot water, and mini fridge all worked normally. Then Jiang Chuan and I went out to buy supplies. To avoid attracting attention, we didn't buy too much from any one store. Instead, we visited 5 wholesale grain and oil markets. For rice and flour, we chose ordinary brands, and mostly bought 10 kilogram and 25 kilogram bags. Larger bags were cheaper, but once opened, they were more vulnerable to moisture and pests. Smaller bags were easier to carry, and opening one wouldn't affect the rest of the stock. Dried noodles, pasta, vermicelli, and oats were bought by the case. We also stocked plenty of soybeans, red beans, and mung beans. In extreme heat, people lose their appetite. A pot of mung bean soup works better than soda. We chose cooking oil in smaller containers. A large jug might go rancid before we could finish it after opening. Salt, sugar, soy sauce, vinegar, and other seasonings were stocked at twice our normal usage. Once staple foods were covered, we started buying canned goods. Luncheon meat, beef, fish, and canned fruit, we bought them all. We only bought a limited amount of compressed biscuits. They lasted a long time, but no one could tolerate eating them for months. Instead, we stocked more oats, nuts, meat floss, chocolate, and energy bars. Fresh vegetables wouldn't last long, so we only bought durable ones like potatoes, onions, and pumpkins. We bought plenty of dried wood ear mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, kelp, dried bamboo shoots, and dehydrated vegetables. As soon as they arrived, we portioned and sealed them. Basement level 4 already had 2 cold storage rooms. Because the guest house had been fully booked for Kixi, we had already prepared a large quantity of ingredients: steak, chicken, fish, shrimp, fruit, and all kinds of semi-prepared foods. Now that the guest house was closed, all of it could stay with us. We contacted a licensed cold chain supplier and ordered another batch of pork, beef, and chicken. When the meat arrived, we portioned everything into single meal packs. 1 bag equaled 1 meal. We would take only what we needed to avoid repeated thawing. We added 6 more commercial freezers. 4 were put into service immediately, while the other 2 stayed unplugged, as backups. Every freezer was numbered, what it contained, and how much remained were all recorded on a checklist, taped to the outside of the door. Temperature alarms were also installed in the cold rooms and freezers, with lines connected directly to the duty room. If the temperature became abnormal, an alarm would sound immediately. The kitchen already had a vacuum sealer, so we bought large quantities of vacuum bags, zip bags, food desiccants, and lidded storage buckets. Once rice or flour was opened, it went straight into food-grade buckets to keep out moisture and insects. In just 5 days, the underground warehouse was filled with rows of rice and flour, rows of canned food, drinking water, medicine, and daily necessities, stacked almost like small hills. Whenever Kiki followed us inside, he would make a full lap around the shelves. His favorite section was the cat food cans. Every time he reached them, he'd stop, look up at me, as if asking, "When are we finally opening all these cans?" Once the food supply was almost complete, we began stocking medicine. After bringing it back, we sorted everything by purpose and expiration date. We also stocked plenty of ice packs and cooling blankets. Daily necessities couldn't be overlooked either. Toilet paper, wet wipes, trash bags, toothpaste, laundry detergent, dish soap, bar soap, and spare batteries were all stocked for 2 years. I also stored more than a year's worth of sanitary pads. Jiang Xuan and I carried everything into the underground warehouse. Just as we were about to leave, we ran into someone. It was the man from the young couple staying upstairs. When he saw what we were carrying, he instinctively hid something behind his back. The water in our room isn't cold enough. I came down to look for some ice. I glanced at the paper hidden behind him. It was an old brochure for the private cinema on basement level 2. He had clearly been trying to find a way into the basement. I spoke coldly. "This is the first time. I'll assume you didn't know the rules. If it happens again, we'll ask you both to leave." The man's expression shifted, but he said nothing. At that moment, his girlfriend came running downstairs. She looked at the door behind me, then at her boyfriend, grabbed his arm and pulled him away. Early the next morning, they didn't mention what had happened. After breakfast, they came to the front desk to check out. All the seaside hotels closed last night. We were going to stay a few more days, but now there's nowhere to book. It's unbearably hot outside. We might as well go home. After completing checkout, they dragged their luggage out of the guest house. I stood at the entrance and watched their car disappear down the mountain road. Then I turned and went back to the duty room. Jiang Xuan and Uncle Chen were checking the equipment. I walked over and told them what the girl had just said. All the seaside hotels have closed. We're not the only ones who think something's wrong. Uncle Chen had also noticed how abnormal the weather was. This weather is getting worse by the day. I need to go home and stay with my wife and kids. I'll leave the guest house to you two. We settled all the wages we owed him and loaded some water and food from the warehouse into his car. Before he left, Jiang Xuan also carried out the old backup generator. "This thing is old, but it still works. Take it home, just in case." Uncle Chen thanked us repeatedly and drove away from the guest house. Jiang Xuan and I locked the heavy front doors together, then checked every window, door, and piece of equipment once more. From that moment on, the guest house was completely sealed off from the outside world. There were 4 days left until Kixi Festival. The weather grew more abnormal by the day. Parts of the city began suffering rolling blackouts. TV presenters were drenched in sweat, yet kept broadcasting extreme heat warnings. Bottled water and drinks had already sold out in supermarkets. Ice makers and portable air conditioners were sold out in shopping malls too. People on the streets finally realized something was wrong and began frantically stockpiling water and food. But by the time they reacted, many places had nothing left to sell. On Kixi Festival, the temperature shot straight to 50 degrees Celsius. The beach was completely deserted. The distant highway looked bleached white under the sun. Occasionally, a car sat stopped on the roadside. Once its doors closed, it never moved again. I watched through binoculars for a long time, before finally drawing the curtains. Looks like no one else will be coming this way. At noon, we began using up the fresh ingredients from cold storage. I opened a cake box. Written on the cake were the words, "May every journey be worth taking." I cut the cake into small pieces and sat with Jiang Chuan in the kitchen. We ate the entire cake, one spoonful at a time. I hope we both make it through this safely. But one night a month later, I was playing with Kiki when I suddenly felt unbearably hot. I looked around and realized the airflow from the AC had weakened. Not long after, the vent stopped blowing entirely. The room grew hotter and hotter. Sweat poured down my body. I quickly woke Jiang Chuan, then took Kiki into the cold storage room. We came back and reset the switches, but the air conditioner still didn't respond. We guessed the outdoor unit had malfunctioned. So we put on full protective gear and went outside to inspect it. We opened the outdoor equipment cabinet and found that the cables had softened from the heat. A layer of dust had also built up beside them. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, opened the toolbox I brought, cleaned out the dust, and replaced one of the cables with a spare. Then we returned underground. With a beep, the air conditioning came back on. Only then did we finally relax. The extreme heat lasted for an entire year. Throughout that year, we checked the equipment every morning and recorded our water, electricity, fuel, and food consumption. We used perishable fresh food first. Only after that did we move on to rice, flour, dried goods, and canned food, to keep life from becoming too monotonous. We watched one movie every night. Jiang Chuan and I took turns choosing. Kiki loved lying on the sofa and watching with us. By the winter of the second year, the temperature finally began to fall. 55 degrees, then 50, then 40. One day, my phone suddenly vibrated. Through the intermittent signal, a notification finally came through. Rescue vehicles have entered multiple regions and begun distributing supplies. 3 months later, the extreme heat that had lasted more than a year finally came to a complete end. The guest house reopened. The private cinema resumed operation. The pool on basement level 3 was refilled with clean water. That evening, Jiang Chuan and I sat on the terrace drinking ice-cold soda. Kiki lay comfortably at our feet, dozing. In my dream, the kitten had run away. In reality, we had kept Kiki with us. And Jiang Chuan and I never reached the ending from my dream. This time, we changed the future.